Good evening. I'll call this regular meeting of the Fairborn City Schools Board of Education to order this Thursday, October 3rd, 2019. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
There's no flag.
Flag. We have no flag. We'll pretend it's
We'll
over here.
pretend, yeah, okay.
Where it usually is. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's fine. We're that one.
Mr. Philo, call the roll, please.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Browning.
Here.
Mr. McCourt.
Here.
Mrs. Malad.
Here.
Ms. Reister.
Here.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you, Ms. Malone and Ms. Reister. Thank you, Mr. Browning.
Welcome back from Italy.
Ms. Reister.
Yes.
Mr. Browning.
Yes.
Mr. McCourt.
Yes.
Mrs. Malad.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes, motion carries. I have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 5th regular meeting and the September 19th work session.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. McCourt.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Malad.
Mr. McCourt.
Yes.
Mrs. Malad.
Yes.
Ms. Reister.
Yes.
Mr. Browning.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes, motion carries. We'll move on to item 6, board member reports and good of the order. Mr. McCourt.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Welcome home, by the way.
Thank you.
Glad to have you back. First thing, top on my list, top on this district's list is, of course, this outstanding grade card that we received. I did make it around to all of the buildings a day or so after, just to show my appreciation and say my thanks to a lot of folks in the district who have worked very hard. Some might say a D to a C is not really nothing to bark at, but I'm here barking. And by God, it's great news to me anyhow. But congratulations to teachers, administrators, central office team who have constantly worked hard to get this grade up, and it's very much appreciated. Secondly, on the sports side of things, been to a few football games, seen some good football being played, but I did want to share with the board and also everyone out there that we received a email. It was a copy of an email that I think our AD received from one of the officials at one of the games played, and the officials were just commenting on how well-mannered and well-respected our athletes were that evening, and we expect that all the time out of them, but it's just good to hear some of that news being spread around, and we appreciate the efforts of all of our athletes. I was able to attend the other night the Athletic Hall of Fame at a football game, and good to see a lot of the old-timers coming back and receiving some awards from for the Hall of Fame. Also was spent a lovely evening one night with Mr. Lawley, hot and sweaty in a truck, passing food around, or cans of food, and this was for the football fundraiser, the food drive. And I'd just like to once again recognize the Dorleys, Mr. and Mrs. Dorley, for all they do. They just keep giving and giving and giving and giving to this community, and kudos to them for doing that. Band, we've seen the band, and I don't want to steal anybody else's thunder, but the band is doing great things. They really looked sharp the other night. Bus drivers, can't say enough about them as well. They are the first person that our kids see in the morning, and what a nice job that they do for us as well. And finally, on a sad note, our hearts and prayers go out to Teresa and Jake Cox for the passing of their father, Jerry. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Mrs. Rumaw, your 6:15 appointment is in your room. Mrs. Rumaw, your 6:15 is in your room.
Okay, Ms. Reister.
All right. Well, first, I want to congratulate Sarah Diaz and her husband for welcoming twins into this crazy world. They're absolutely adorable. Marching band, I'll let Jerry have most of the thunder.
go ahead.
But they had an amazing showing at Pride of LaSalle. They are traveling to Ball State this weekend, so send them in your good wishes. Steering committee has been working hard to make sure we formulate some good committees on hopefully building some new buildings. So that's been exciting to look forward to. Public forum the other night, we had some really good questions, so that was good. I too attended the Athletic Hall of Fame. It's always awesome to see our athletes and where they go in life and what they did and their accomplishments. And then next week is homecoming. So spirit and
the
all that
homecoming
stuff.
parade.
And the homecoming parade and powder puff football, all the good stuff. So, and that's all I have.
Okay, Mrs. Malad.
I have nothing to add to that so far. All that, yes.
Okay.
Let Jerry do the.
Mr. Brown.
Oh, that's
Let you
okay.
do the band.
Okay, I have a few things. Okay, Pat mentioned the football for food. The other people really I'd like to thank are Pam Gayhart and Chris Gayhart and them for what they do to put that whole program together. And I know they were at the at Kroger quite a bit helping to collect food and those types of things and make sure everything went off right. From a sports standpoint, I've been able to get to boys and girls soccer, middle school volleyball, football, and in every case, I've seen kids play hard and play with very good sportsmanship at all levels, which is, from my perspective, is really really neat to see. From the marching band standpoint, there was a number of us that were there at LaSalle the other night, and our marching band got first place in music, first place general effects, first place percussion, and first place for 4A, which is huge. They also got reserve grand champion, which is second place out of all the bands that were there, no matter what division they were in. So, they're doing a heck of a job, and the new uniforms looked outstanding. So the band and the color guard, I got to say the color guard is the biggest that I've seen it in years, a lot of years. So, when you put that number of flags and number of color guard out on the field with the band, it's really a neat show. One thing I wanted to do that kind of forgotten in the background related to the marching band is all the parents involved. And, we have two band moms up here now between Katie and Mary. And the amount of work that the parents put in is unbelievable. I go to a lot of the music club meetings, and there's great attendance at those. And the fundraising efforts they put in, those kind of things, they build pretty much all the props. Between mothers and fathers, they haul all the props and all the equipment, all the gears, driving U-Hauls, pulling trailers. So I think that we got to recognize them and thank them for all the efforts that they put in to help the marching band succeed. The last thing is the music club announced the musical for next spring. It's Fiddler on the Roof, which is one of my one of my favorite musicals. So I was so glad when I heard that. So we'll look forward to that come next spring. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I also don't have a whole bunch to add, partially because I was out of the country for 2 weeks. So I just got back last night. But it is good to hear about the band and their performances, and having been in my own high school band, I do recognize the support that is needed from the parents on that. And that goes throughout the whole school system, is the support that the parents give to the children and the activities that they're involved in is just critical to helping their education along. So that's all I have. Oh, I have one more thing. We do have elections coming up. There will be elections for the school board. There's uncontested elections for the school board coming up, but have contested elections for city council. And as always, it's important because you're vote matters in what happens in the city of Fairborn. So please, everybody, get out and vote.
There's gonna be a, thing at the senior center on the, where you can hear from them and talk to them afterwards.
That's a meet the candidate, I think, on the, maybe on the 15th.
Yes, the 15th.
Okay.
It starts around 7.
Yeah,
Okay.
sponsored by the League of Women Voters.
Okay, yeah. Meet the candidate night for the city council candidates at Senior Center. What's the date, Pat?
15th,
The 15th, 7 o'clock, so.
we were invited to that to give a roaring 3-minute
Oh.
talk, just to- so if we choose to do so.
Can you do that?
3 minutes?
Aw, Millie would
Not limiting to 3
I'll start
minutes.
outside and then
Okay.
come in. I liked you better when you were gone.
Okay, we'll close this portion and move on to recognition of visitors and public comments. If there's anybody in the audience that wishes to address the board, please step up to the microphone, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 5 minutes. Anybody? Seeing no one, we'll close recognition of visitors and move on to district presentations. Mr.
Okay.
Lawley.
Thank you. Here tonight to give a presentation for the 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. is staff member, teacher from Baker Middle School, Mrs. Kitten Gear.
That's student council. This should be 8th grade. Student council thing. I gave you guys a sample itinerary at your seats.
Mhm.
Okay.
Want me to measure?
Yeah, on the microphone.
Okay. I gave you guys a sample itinerary that the company has sent with us. So if you have any questions for me, the price is very comparable to what it was last year, so there's not really much of an increase.
How many did we have last year, do you recall?
We had 2 full buses. It was 98 students, I believe.
Okay. And similar interest this year, you think, or?
I don't know, we have our parent meeting Monday, so we'll find out Monday.
Okay.
Monday at
Probably good to get
6:30.
approved before then.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Monday at 6:30 in the Baker Auditorium, we'll be there.
All right.
Okay.
Good. It's a great trip for the kids to go on.
Yeah.
Yes, it's lots of fun. And
Yeah.
finally, we're going to Ford's Theater. We've been trying for the last 9 years to get into Ford's Theater. In the last 4 years, it's been under construction because they've been redoing it. And we're on the docket to go to Ford's Theater this year, so I'm very excited for the kids to see that.
That's
Yeah,
neat.
cool.
That's a good one.
All right. Great.
And we will try again to get a White House visit, but we can't do that until February, so we're going to try that again. Last year, they said our group was too big, so this year we're going to do it by buses. We'll have the kids divided up and do one bus, like say Friday, and the other bus Saturday morning. So maybe if our groups are smaller, we'll get a chance to have a sightseeing tour inside the White House. So I've already contacted Senator Turner's office, so that's what I've got to do.
Okay,
Wonderful. Sounds like you're
Great.
awesome. Thanks.
thanks.
You're welcome.
Next up is our treasurer, Mr. Kevin Philo. He will be giving a first presentation on the National Financial Reporting Awards, and then he will follow that up with the 5-year financial forecast.
Mr. President, Board of Education, it's with great pleasure that I present to you 2 National Financial Accounting Report Awards. The first is from the Association of School Business Officials. Fairborn Schools had received this probably last time, probably 20 years ago. So we do a comprehensive annual financial report that's about 300 pages in length to get this award, and we look forward to adding more years on here.
Exciting.
The second is from the, a little heavier, Government Finance Officers Association. It's for Certificate of Achievement and Excellence in Financial Reporting. It's for the Comprehensive Financial Report. I don't know if Fairborn Schools ever received this one in the past, but we're looking to add more years on it. Special recognition to Mr. Rick Taylor and the Treasurer's Office staff. Do a fantastic work with it. In the quality profile, you'll see a picture of the entire staff with the awards that'll go out to the community. So I want to thank you and thank them for that.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Congra-
good job.
Congratulations to you and all of your staff members.
Is there a possibility we can get a picture of you and
Mr.
Rick
Taylor?
and the board
Yeah.
before we leave tonight?
Second presentation
Oh, boy.
is
Some
on
music.
finances.
I love it when we get music.
I did this just for Katie.
Thank you.
The audience.
This really makes my night.
It gives me great pleasure to present the music from Rocky instead of the music from the Titanic or Halloween. In terms of our finances, are very solid and very strong, and the Fairborn schools have worked very hard to achieve that. As you know, the state of Ohio requires a 5-year forecast done twice a year. The main one is in October. I stretched out a little bit. You've got the official 5-year one in yours, but I also look 6 years out. So you've got the presentation in front of you that just shows some history of where we've been for the last 4 years. 2019 is duplicated on both of them. You can see last year, 2019, we ended with an ending cash balance of $29,878,000. It's probably the largest cash balance we've ever had, but we're very solid, very strong in terms of our finances. We're roughly a $50 million business. This represents a little over half of our operating expenses. The good part is in red, you'll see the projected for 2020, that we look to build up cash even a little bit more. This represents the new numbers from the state of Ohio budget. It also represents the negotiated increases that are already in place for this year. For the future, we have placeholders in there of 3% built in just as a placeholder. Our salaries are subject to negotiations, which we'll start negotiating here in the fall to have new salary schedules in place come July 1 of 2020. But financially, very strong. You can see our cash balances will probably top out in fiscal year 21 and then start to slowly decrease after that. And I always say anything after 18 months is pure speculation. The only thing I can guarantee about these numbers is that they're wrong, that they will change, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. So in terms of that shows in the format that we're used to looking at. It also shows in there a separate line down here with the additional employees. When we did the visioning and we did the improvements and brought back the things at the elementary, we did some other things with social and emotional, added some curriculum changes. So those changes are in there, and that's about an $8 million investment of the Fairborn schools over the next 5 years. Roughly for fiscal year 2020, we're looking at our total projected revenues of a little over $50 million. And our expenditures about $48.5 million. So we'll build up cash projected about $1.5 million. Our ending cash balances, as I said, the highlights is we increased a little bit from 2019 up to 2020. We'll probably top out in 21 and then start to slowly go down for a couple years and then significant decreases here. And that is not unusual. This basically signals the need at some point for an operating levy. And it's been 12 years since the Fairborn Schools has passed an operating levy. So 12 years is remarkable to go without one. And so we're projecting that maybe be able to go another 3 years, but somewhere in the near future, probably in the next 3 to 5 years, we're planning for a small operating levy to occur. Total receipts and expenditures, you can see that we're better than the federal government, better than the balanced budget. We're still building up cash, but at some point, those lines will meet and expenses will go up. I always like to, in any presentation, show our per pupil expenditures. In terms of Fairborn is in the blue, Greene County is in the green, statewide is in the yellow, and the group average is in black. As I always said, is Fairborn schools are a good value and a good investment, that we spend a lot lower per pupil than a lot of other districts that we're compared to. And proud to say, now that some of these districts are below us when it comes to the report card. So in terms of, you talk about value, you talk about cost versus outcomes. Just in terms of a district comparison, you saw this last year in terms of how Fairborn compares to neighboring districts, Troutwood and Huber Heights, where the expenditure per pupil is significantly higher at both of them. But the average income at Troutwood is lower. Huber Heights is a little bit smaller, but in terms of how much they spend, comparable to us. Finally, the effective tax rates, to show that where we're at. These are for 2017. Some districts have passed some other levies since then, but we're still very, very low tax rate, and that is a total tax rate, not just the schools, but that is all governments combined. In conclusion, just what we worked on this last year to improve accountability, transparency, and value. Hopefully we've improved that over the past year. I'm not going to go through everything, but hopefully as we've met our benchmarks, and we'll continue to meet those benchmarks. Entertain any questions at this time from the board? No? Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good job, Kevin.
Next is a construction update from Mr. Jeff Patrick.
Just a quick update about the construction at the new primary school. Today, we gave a tour to approximately 20 staff members. This has been an ongoing thing for the past several weeks. Next week is our last tour. I think we've got about 25 people scheduled. And the great thing is there's quite a bit of progress inside the walls that you can't see from the outside that took place from last week to this week. So there's quite a bit of excitement. Some of those changes that took place, the wing that kind of fingers off towards Funderburg, we call it the E section. There's some drywall now on walls in classrooms. You can actually start to see things start to take shape, which is kind of nice. It's really exciting. We have some brick on that same section on the east side. I would call it about 3 feet high, maybe a little taller than that. But you'll actually start to see the color and stuff take shape, which is also exciting. So you can start to really see what's going to happen with that building. As far as what's going on the inside, piping, water piping, gas piping, duct work, all continues to go on as scheduled. And the one thing that we do have that we've been discussing over the past several weeks, as you know, we're behind schedule. There's a process in which you have to go through to kind of determine how far behind we are. And with the weather patterns and so forth, OFCC, Monarch Construction have to come to an agreement with what those days are. And it appears as if we are currently what we would consider to be 18 calendar days behind schedule, and Monarch will sign off on that hopefully within the next couple of weeks. And all that basically has to do from the early rain that we had in the spring. So we've not really lost ground, we've not gained ground, we've just kind of stayed steady since the spring weather. Other than that, the intermediate school basically just kind of sits still right now. We've done everything we need to do until we get to next summer. We did have moving companies in this week. We have another moving company coming next week to talk to us about all the movement that has to take place with Wright going into the new school, the primary going into the new primary, and the intermediate going to the old primary. So we have 2 moving companies that has helped schools in the past with those transitions. The good thing is we figure we have about 6 weeks to make those transitions over the summer. The moving company this week said they really felt they could do that very easily. So that's good.
Okay, good.
So, any questions?
So we're still on time target to hit our August 1 deadline.
There's a lot of dates that have changed between now and actually June the 15th. June the 15th is the important date. June the 15th is supposed to be my move-in date. And June the 15th is still my move-in date. So if dry-in situations happen, total decking happens at a different date, it's not a big concern to me. My concern is that June the 15th date. That's my 6 weeks window that I need to get the teachers in place. We all know that elementary teachers will be in those classrooms that first Monday in August. So being a past elementary teacher, I'm going to work really hard to make sure that those teachers can go to those rooms that first Monday in August.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, and the other teachers from Wright and the intermediate school have to be in their rooms as well. So
Right.
That's going to be stressful on.
It's
on a
going to be
lot of
very
people.
stressful, but we'll get through it. We'll get through it. Anything else?
Just a comment, I attend every Friday morning a construction meeting at the site, and I would just like to thank Jeff for hanging in there with us and keeping, people's feet to the fire, because Jeff knows, and through Jeff, these people know on a weekly basis of that date, and Jeff has got a pretty tight schedule of about 3 weeks, I think,
3 weeks per each building.
per each building to move a total building into the new building and then move the intermediate to the primary building. So with movers and everybody pitching in and helping out, we're going to make that. But I just wanted to let people know that Mr. Patrick does hold people's feet to the fire, and he will continue to do so. And appreciate your efforts, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Our final district presentation tonight is an update on our state report card, and that will be given by Dr. Brackenhoff, Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Well, I'm glad this update brings good news. We are due.
As are we.
That's right.
As we are. Just an overview. This is the overall grade distribution for the state of Ohio this year. As you'll see, about 46% of the districts received the letter grade of C, and we are proud to say we are among those districts, having improved our scores. So a little hard to see, but I'm just pointing out some of the areas that from our preliminary data we saw some big growth. So in the area of progress, our letter grade is a C, but our component score back in August was a 1.0, and as you see, we have a huge jump to a 3.1. In our graduation rate, again, an increase from a 3.1 to a 3.65. And in our K-3 literacy, a jump from 1.5 to 2.0. So our overall points that helped us earn the letter grade of C went from a 1.9 to a 2.48. So a nice healthy jump to give us that letter C that we will proudly accept, because we know it reflects a lot of effort across our district. Just some information as a point of reference. According to our last census, the median household income in Fairborn was $45,000. This is how the grade distribution is distributed across the state according to median household income. And if you look for the income category that's closest to Fairborn's, you'll notice that most districts that have a median household income of $44,000 were earning the letter D. So again, another reason to be proud for the efforts of our teachers and our students. Just some background information. Each year, in addition to all of the other data the state produces, it gives us a list of 20 similar districts. And this year, there are many similar districts that are very close to us, Mad River being the closest, and West Carrollton, Xenia, and Huber Heights. Of all of those districts, I'm happy to say that Fairborn report was higher than theirs. Looking at that similar group, again, they look at the statistics that looks at poverty, the number of students, household income, and a variety of other factors. The overall grade in that group, we are one of 7 that scored a C. In the area of achievement, you'll see that only 4 districts scored a C, and we were with the rest of the pack with a D in achievement. Gap closing for us, I think, is one of the areas to really be proudest about. And our district had a B in this area. There were only 8 districts that had a B or above. And you'll see it, gap closing had also the largest range from an A to an F. And in progress, which looks at the growth of our students, again, we are here with a C in that area. But with our similar districts, I think we are strong in some areas, and we certainly see some areas that we can continue to grow in. Just a little, besides the pride that we feel for our district report card, we have one building that really stood out with the final grade, and that was Fairborn Intermediate School. The overall grade distribution for the state, if you'll look, just about only 30% of the schools in the state of Ohio scored a letter B. And Fairborn Intermediate is really proud to have that as their overall rating. And I want to point out their progress, which is the growth of their students, having their students grow at least 1 year, but to get a grade like this, they are growing them more than 1 year. Out of a possible 5.0, Fairborn Intermediate scored a 4.85 and has about the strongest A you can get without being a perfect score. So we want to congratulate the staff at Fairborn Intermediate. We know that this is an effort of everyone. It begins the day our students walk into preschool and continues through the grades, and the students and staff at Fairborn Intermediate have a lot to be proud of. And even though a C may not be where we want to be, we are climbing to excellence with our sights set on that A. And again, we are really happy to share the good news, but most importantly, to congratulate all of our students, all of our staff, not just the teachers in the classroom. It takes the effort of every single person that works in Fairborn for us to continue to excel. Are there any questions tonight? I've provided the board with a guide to Ohio school report cards, which is available on the ODE website. If you have nothing else to do, it's 32 fun-filled pages of reading. But it does explain as best possible how to read our district report card. So that is available, and I do have an extra copy here if anyone would like it. Any other questions?
I was just going to comment, obviously, the report is excellent from where we've been. On the last slide you've got there, I just want to comment, that's not wishful thinking. You've shared with us and shared with the district plans and steps to actually move from a C to an A, not just hope that we do. So
Absolutely.
It's really good that that plan is there to keep moving towards the A.
Yeah, and we understand that it's not going to
That's
happen
right.
overnight or in one school year. It's a multi-year process to get that.
Absolutely.
Get that to happen.
And I really
So-
like that you said that it's everybody's effort, because we're not comparing kids from one year to the next.
No, we are not.
So it really does rely on everybody that it's, to get those scores, so.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to item 9, the budget and finance items. I have a motion.
So moved. Oh.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Browning, and thank you, Ms. Reister. Any comments, questions on these items?
Mr. Browning,
Yes.
Ms. Reister,
Yes.
Mr. McCourt,
Yes.
Mrs. Malad,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes, motion carries. And item 10 is administrative reports and superintendent recommendations. This goes to page 7 on the agenda items. I'll call your attention at the bottom of page 6. We have two significant retirements. We have Charlotte Brandenburg retiring after 24 years of service with the Fairborn City Schools. So we'll have a resolution of tribute for Charlotte. And Stanford Brundage, bus driver, will also be getting a resolution of appreciation for his 8 years of service. And gifts and donations on page 7B. We just have one. Mr. McCourt, you want to?
Oh, absolutely.
Read
Thank
that
you.
off.
Most certainly, we thank the folks for the gifts and donations that we receive. But this month, we have Tim Kern Sr. of JTM Food Group donating 2,323 boxes for FPS and FIS. Thank you so much.
That's a portion of what we need for the move.
Oh.
Okay?
We figured we need about 5,100 boxes. So he's
That's a good dent in
Good
50.
good start.
Nice.
actually 7 pallets full of boxes that are laying flat right now.
Wow.
That's a good donation.
That's
That's awesome.
fantastic.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Kern.
Okay. And also at the end of this is the approval for the 8th grade Baker Middle School trip to Washington, D.C. I have a motion.
So
So-
moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Malad, and thank you, Ms. Reister. Any comments, questions on these?
Nope.
I hope you make it to the White House.
Yeah, that's right.
Mrs. Malad,
Yes.
Ms. Reister,
Yes.
Mr. McCourt,
With pleasure, yes.
Mr. Browning,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes, motion carries. We now have an executive session to discuss the compensation and employment of a public employee as well as purchase of real estate. No action is expected. We're likely to be there a while, so those of you in the audience are free to go. If you want to stay and hear us adjourn the meeting, that's fine also. I have a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. McCourt.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Browning.
Mr. McCourt,
Yes.
Mr. Browning,
Yes.
Mrs. Malad,
Yes.
Ms. Reister,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes, we are now in executive session.